Me and her might leave. Okay, we're gonna use your car.
Yep.
And like we won't probably only for like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Native Wellness Power Hour. I'm your host today, Chelsey Luger, and I'm so excited to talk all about maternity, health, and fitness. I'll just wait a little bit to get going here until a few more people log on. So I'm coming to you from my apartment in Phoenix, Arizona, but I'm originally from North Dakota. I'm enrolled in Turtle Mountain, Chippewa, and that's on my mom's side of the family, and then I'm also from Standing Rock and Cheyenne River on my dad's side of the family, so I'm also Lakota. And I live here in Phoenix with my husband Thosh, who many of you probably know. He is from the Salt River Reservation. Hello, Roberta. Good to see you too. Thanks for saying hi. So I live here with Thosh in Phoenix. Been here for about 4 or 5 years. And we have a 2-year-old daughter, Aloe. She's in the other room. And then we have a baby on the way. So I'll show you guys my bump. So it's really fun and exciting to talk all about maternity health and wellness, being that I'm in the thick of it myself. I just started 3rd trimester the other day, so I'm about 28, 29 weeks along, and things are going pretty good so far. Yes. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so it looks like our numbers are going up here. 32 people are with us so far. And again, welcome, everyone. Welcome, relatives, to the Native Wellness Power Hour. Can you believe it's week 26, I believe, or 27 maybe, of the Power Hour? Such amazing content that spans all aspects of Indigenous health and wellness. We've heard from people all over the world that they have found healings through these trainings, and thanks to so many generous sponsors and partners, we have been able to continue this throughout the entire pandemic and still going strong. And so it's just very exciting to be a part of this. If you have missed previous Power Hours, you can find them on YouTube, the Native Wellness Institute YouTube channel. And you can also find them right here on Facebook. And I believe they're also on nativewellness.com. So just any health and wellness topic you can imagine at this point, we have addressed it in some way, shape, or form. So please do go back and watch more of the Power Hours if you can. Roberta's asking to see a peek of Aloe. She is hanging out with her dad right now because she's a little bit cranky. It's her nap time. So I don't know if they'll be coming in here. I think he's going to take her for a drive so she can really fall asleep. But yeah, she's been a little trooper, just at home with us all the time, and we're constantly doing Zoom trainings and, trying to keep her entertained throughout the day, which is a challenge. And she doesn't like it when we're on Zoom, so but she's doing pretty good. And she's excited for the baby on the way. All right, so so first I just want to start off by giving thanks, of course, giving thanks to all of our participants, giving thanks to the Native Wellness Institute for inviting me to speak today, and of course giving thanks to all of the life-giving things that come from all of the directions, giving thanks to Creator, giving thanks for this day and for being here and for being able to stand on 2 feet. And with that, I keep in mind those who are suffering, those who are having a hard time, those who need healing, those who need wellness, and I think all of us need a little bit of that every day. And just sending love, sending prayers, and sending good thoughts and warm thoughts to everyone across Indian country and around the world. And every day I know I wake up grateful for culture, grateful for connection to spirit and spirituality, and grateful for my extended family, my relatives, my descendants, my future generations, and of course, grateful to the ancestors who came before me, who worked so hard so that we could be here today, and who survived so much and endured so much just so that we could be alive. So, life-giving is very powerful. Life-giving is our tradition in Indigenous communities. And one of the things that I learned more than anything through my first pregnancy, I'm kind of reading comments as I go. One of the things I learned through my first pregnancy was the power of Indigenous child rearing and pregnancy teachings. So from every tribe and from every nation, different Indigenous communities carry our own histories and our own systems of healthcare, our systems of spiritual understanding, and our systems of holistic health that have nurtured our babies for many, many, many generations. And for us as an intertribal family, as I mentioned, I'm Lakota and Anishinaabe. My husband is O'odham and Wajaji and Seneca Cayuga. So we have many aspects of intertribal heritage within our household. And it was a really fun and interesting process to take on the responsibility as new parents of learning a lot about health and wellness from this maternity and prenatal perspective. And then, of course, that has transferred into the way that we have parented our 2-year-old as well. And we continue to learn all the time. There's a lot of this information is out there, but unfortunately, you know, due to the structure of our healthcare systems today, you can't just walk into any old clinic and say, you know, give me the the teachings that come from my tribe. It doesn't work that way. So we have to work a little bit harder to find these teachings. And then we've also actually, of course, our network of intertribal friends and family has been really integral in sharing their methodologies and their ways with us. And what we found is that, of course, you know, with respect to the immense diversity of Indian country and the differences between all of our nations, we've also found a lot of interesting similarities and areas that are congruent amongst the way that we view pregnancy and child rearing. So, so just a little note there. I know a lot of other moms and parents are probably joining us, or people who carry some of these teachings. So if you have any interesting teachings that come from your tribe or your nation that have to do with the way that we nurtured and care for babies in the womb, or the way that we view motherhood, fatherhood, parenting, anything related to this topic, I would love for you to comment that on the little sidebar here. And also, if you have questions, feel free to comment those as well. Somebody asked, is bear root safe to ingest during pregnancy? I actually don't know the answer to that. I know that in my nation, we do use bear root medicinally in a number of different ways. I haven't been told to use it or not to use it specifically when it comes to pregnancy, so I can't answer that question. But if anybody else can, please let Caitlin know in the comments. So that's just a little brief overview of, I think, you know, Indigenous maternity health is in this stage of powerful reclamation. And you see that all over Native country, you see that all over the world of Indigenous people reclaiming and rerooting ourselves in these teachings and rerooting our families in these teachings. And it truly is an empowering process for those of us who are going through it. Let's see here. And then I just want to offer a suggestion. I just wrote an article for Huffington Post Canada about Indigenous parenting, and I actually haven't even posted on any of my social medias yet because I just got a chance to look at the final piece this morning. But if you Google Huffington Post Canada and you Google my name, Chelsey Luger, it should come up. And yeah, there we talk a lot about traditional Indigenous parenting teachings. And then for this session today, I want to focus a lot on movement and food. So if anybody has any questions about what kind of exercises are safe, what kind of foods are safe, what kind of stuff I like to do, any kind of questions about food or fitness related to maternity health, I would be more than happy to answer those questions. So with that, I also like to show as opposed to just talking about things. So let's all, if you can, I can't see you all, but please stand up with me. And we're just going to do a few little light movement exercises together. Again, I am in my 3rd trimester, so it's safe for pregnancy, safe for moms. And whether you're pregnant or not, these are going to be some good and healing movements for you. So let's start by standing nice and upright. And our feet are about shoulder width apart, and our palms are nice and open. So we're ready to receive good energy. And we're going to take a deep breath in through the nose and exhale. Deep breath in, exhale. 3rd breath, inhale, exhale. Find your breath getting longer as we go on. And 4, inhale. And nice deep breath, exhale. Let it all out and do a little shake here with the arms. And I like to shake my arms forward and back. So we're pinching the shoulders, opening up the chest, opening up the heart space really fluidly. Let's bring our wrists out front and twist our wrists a little bit. I know I really need this movement right now because I spent all morning answering emails and making appointments and handling these logistical things that are really no fun, the not so fun aspect of my work. So let's go ahead and just alternate with our fluid loose monkey arms here, just really opening up the shoulders. So I did that all morning, answered emails, sat at my desk and had to make some appointments, and I didn't get a chance to move around or do anything like that yet. So it feels good for me to move. I don't know if you could hear my shoulders cracking there, but let's see, week 26 of the Power Hour. Wow, I was just checking for comments. Okay, so let's do a nice big shoulder roll backwards. Let's do 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and forward. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Keep your breath going. Now full circles of the arms. 1, inhale as you rise. Exhale as you lower. 2 and 3. Inhale. Exhale. Good. 4. Exhale. Really taking deep breaths in through the nose. We're going to reverse directions now. We're moving our arms forward. Inhale and exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Good. In. And one more. Inhale and exhale. Good. Okay. So now that we have just a little bit of movement in, let's go ahead and start talking about what is safe to, what kind of exercises and fitness are safe versus not safe during pregnancy. So what I was told by my doctors and midwives and others who I have consulted on this is that pretty much any type of exercise or movement that you were comfortable with doing prior to pregnancy, you can continue doing that throughout your entire pregnancy. The only difference is that, of course, perhaps our level of exertion might need to change and adjust based on what our bodies are comfortable with handling as we go. So, for example, if you were a runner prior to pregnancy and you were very accustomed and very used to distance running, you can continue to do that throughout your pregnancy. That's certainly not me. I've never been a distance runner. But if you are, you can do that. Or if you were experienced in weight training or in yoga or in Pilates, you can do all of that stuff. I know one of the specific questions I had was, can I do inversions in yoga? Like, can I do my headstands, or, the downward dog where you're going upside down, or those kind of things. I didn't know if it was unsafe, to wobble the baby too much. And I was told that any of those things are actually totally safe. It's really more so a matter of comfort. So of course there's certain things in yoga where now that my belly has grown quite a bit, it's getting in the way. And so, one modification that I take, for example, is not doing anything, of course, where, of course I can't lay down flat on my belly or anything like that. So I'll do different modifications, and just trying to keep my the comfort of my belly in priority. The other thing is that specifically to weight training, you want to avoid using your core muscles from the very beginning of pregnancy. So what happens is if you overexert your core during pregnancy, and because what's naturally going on with your body is that your muscles are separating to make room for the growing womb, the growing uterus. If you exert your core and continue to try to build those muscles while they're in this natural state of expansion, then you may actually create a situation where it's much harder for them to fuse together after the pregnancy has ended. So avoid using the core. And then I know for myself, and everyone is different on their preferences and on what feels safe or what feels right for them, but I felt a pretty good deal of instability in my core for months following the pregnancy. And think of it this way: if it takes 9 or 10 months for your baby to grow and for your body to grow with it, then you want to allow yourself at least 9 or 10 months of healing time following that. And be patient with yourself and know that that's okay. So I didn't get back to doing any kind of sit-ups or, I can't even think of the word, but any kind of specific ab exercises. I didn't start doing those until probably 9 or 10 months postpartum. So some of these are going to get a little confusing or a little tricky, but make sure that you're really listening to your body. A common number that I often hear referred to in the Western system is 6 weeks. A lot of times people will talk about going back to their doctor and say, am I cleared for exercise? And the doctor at the 6-week postpartum checkup will say, yeah, you're fine, you can exercise. But to me, that's kind of too vague of a generalization. I think that there are plenty of exercises that you are clear for at 6 weeks postpartum, but there might be a number of things that still don't feel right or that your body hasn't fully healed from at that point. So don't worry if you're hearing that everybody else is starting to exercise 6 weeks postpartum, but certain things don't feel right for you yet. I actually happen to agree with you there. There were certain things, a lot of things actually, that I didn't do until more like a year postpartum. So it's just on being gentle with yourself and knowing that allowing your body to heal is sometimes, and rest is sometimes even more important than jumping back into an aggressive exercise routine. So again, just being really specific. And something that can help a lot with that is that in today's world, YouTube is a great free resource for us. So what I would do is often just Google, there are a lot of maternity fitness specialists who have tons of free workshops also on YouTube, and you can find those readily available and free. You can watch them on your phone and whatnot. And then of course, the other aspect of postpartum fitness is the fact that we're so busy with our newborns. And so this is going to kind of cross over into the nutrition aspect as well, but particularly if you make the choice to breastfeed, or if you're able to breastfeed, then food and fitness is going to be a little bit different in that phase, that fourth trimester phase as well. So again, if people have questions as we go, feel free to write those and I will be happy to answer any questions. And then let's do a little break for a little bit more movement. So let's take one arm, we're going to inhale, right arm comes up and exhale, really just bending at the torso. Notice how my hips are staying square. And come back up to center, inhale, and exhale, lower the arm, good. Inhale with our left arm rising, and lean gently as you exhale over to one side, good. And notice my hips stay square. I'm not jutting them out, but I'm keeping them upright and just allowing expansion in the side body. And back up to center, good. And exhale as you lower, good. Now we're going to take one arm above our head and really go ahead and pull and stretch that tricep out. Nice. For me, this feels like a really nice stretch right here. And back up to center, and then the left arm, really stretching out this tricep, good. Here's one of my favorite maternity stretches, hands on the hips, and I'm showing you from the side, and then I'm taking just one foot out in front of me. You can't quite see it, but I'm just resting my heel on the ground, and just hinging forward at the hips. Good, and then I slightly bend my left knee, my standing knee, and come back up to center. And that leaves a lot of nice room for the belly as you stretch forward. And come back up to center, good. And now we're gonna just go ahead and we're gonna reach and look up at our hand and bending on over, even you can touch the ground, good. And right, think of expansion, and left, and right, awesome. So some of these, something to keep in mind in general that for me felt very empowering is working on flexibility during pregnancy. This can be there's two components of it that I really like about flexibility training during maternity stages. One is that your ligaments are actually in this process of loosening up and preparing, your body is preparing itself for labor. So even though certain things might feel a little bit more difficult, for example, cardio is going to feel more difficult because our heart is pumping twice as much blood. And so for me, I lose my breath really quickly, so I can't really do a lot of heavy cardio. Weight training is going to feel more difficult because when you can't use your core, that really eliminates quite a few weight training movements that feel safe and feel right to do. And so flexibility training is a really fun way to continue to exert yourself in a safe way while pregnant. And you'll find that flexibility training might feel even easier for you while pregnant than it feels when you're not, because your ligaments are loosening up through this hormonal process of preparation for labor. So, and if I can recommend a certain area to concentrate on, it's the hips. So go with the flow of what your body is naturally doing. Naturally, your hips are expanding in pregnancy and preparing for labor. So you can really do some fun hip exercises. So I'm just going to take my stool here. Let me see if I can lower my computer a bit. There we go. So this is one that I love to do. I'm going to use my stool for balance, and I'm going to cross my ankle over it's just above my knee, and just going to gently hinge at the hip, stretching forward. Good. And I'm keeping my back, I'm just turning to the side so you can see, I'm keeping my back at a nice, good posture, nice level plane. And just go and really spend time in this and stretch as deeply as you can. And then we're going to go ahead and switch legs. So the left foot now is going to cross over. We're standing like this. And I'm using this for balance, but you don't necessarily need, if you have the balance, you can do it without support. But just gently hinging at the hips forward and really getting a good stretch. Even beyond maternity health, during the pandemic, so many of us are sitting at our desks and working on the computers more than ever before. And so really opening up the hips is great for this phase of our lives, this pandemic phase. So I'm just going to do that one more time. And then remember, you can also do these from seated. So these hip stretches are great. So really focus on stretching the hips. And then another one that I love to share is some people call this the yogi squat. If you are a yogi and if you are a person who takes yoga classes, you're going to be familiar with it as that. I like to call it the teepee sit because I think of the way that my ancestors sat in teepees. We didn't have chairs, so many of our people were very agile in the hips and in knee mobility. And if you actually look back into ancestral teachings, many women from many different tribes actually gave birth in this squatted position. And so the more that we practice it leading up to labor, the more comfortable that's going to be for us. So I'm going to go back in this corner so that I have the space to show you what that looks like. So let's start first, before I go all the way into this deep squat. We're just going to do a couple of regular inhale, exhale, inhale as you lower, exhale as you rise. So we're just warming up with a couple of regular squats. Good. And now we're going to see if we can go all the way down into what I call the teepee sit. So feet are just a little bit wider than hips width apart. Toes are pointed outward, and we're just going to squat all the way down to the ground. Good. And you'll notice I'm using my elbows to hold my knees open, and the knees and the hips are really nice and wide. And the important thing here is to keep your feet flat on the ground. Good. And as I'm here, I'll take a deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. Now for an added challenge, you can add a reach. Reach up with one arm, look at your hand, inhale, and as you exhale, bring the arm back in and reach, inhale, and exhale, bring the arm back in and rise back up to standing. Good. So that is a great one for anyone, whether you're pregnant or not, to just really work on having that level of hip mobility. And again, remember that our ancestors often carried that level of hip mobility even into elderly age. So it is possible, though our lifestyles today often take away from our ability to be mobile, especially in the hips, because the more we sit in a chair, we decondition our hips over time. So we're practicing that is a really good way. And some of you may have stories about different ways of giving labor that you've heard of, or maybe that you've been through. But I know a lot of ancestral teachings, for example, often women would give birth near a tree, and sometimes there would even be like a rope or some other apparatus attached to the tree that you could hold on to, and would be in that squatting position. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, because if you're seated, if you're squatting, so your torso is upright, you're allowing gravity to assist you with the labor. Whereas when we're laying down in this planar position in a hospital bed, then gravity isn't necessarily our friend through that process. In my first delivery, I actually had a C-section, so I haven't been through the labor process of the vaginal labor process. I can't tell you how that experience went for me, but I am a candidate to have potentially have a VBAC, so we'll see how it goes. But in any way you choose to give birth, the important thing is that it's whatever you're comfortable with. It's whatever is healthy for you and your baby in the moment. So with that, let's move on a little bit to the food conversation. And I just want to talk about what is quote unquote healthy or not to eat during pregnancy and postpartum stages. So it's interesting because if you were to talk to me about this 3 years ago when I was pregnant with my first, I would have probably been giving you a long list of what you really need to avoid and what you really need to include in your diet. And if you don't, oh my gosh, it's going to be a disaster. And I think in that time, I was almost too absorbed in the books and the videos and the research and just was kind of obsessed with trying to get it exactly right. And the thing with health, generally speaking, whether it's maternity health or not, is that there's 1,000 different experts out there that are going to give you 1,000 different answers, and they're all trying to sell their version of it. So they're all going to make it seem extremely urgent and extremely end-all be-all, that it's their way or the highway, and if you're not doing it their way, then you're doing it wrong. So what I found is, I think that to a degree, being so absorbed in that level of research and trying to find it exactly right, that may have actually caused a little bit of stress for me, more so than what I needed to necessarily put myself through. In reality, what I would recommend for maternity eating is just eat what makes you feel nourished. And that's going to be different through the different stages that we go through. The general recommendation that if you go through the Western medical system, for example, I use a combination. I go to the doctors, but I also listen to a lot of traditional teachings and stuff like that. And when you do go to the doctor and you ask about nutrition, they're going to give you a very generic pamphlet that gives you kind of like the My Plate government recommendations for healthy eating, and they're going to tell you to take your prenatal vitamins. And if that method works for you and that's enough and that's all you need to hear, then that's great. For me, it's a balance. I found that the nuance of how your appetite changes throughout the pregnancy often was not addressed in my visits with the doctor's office. I wasn't really prepared for the degree to which my body would demand different things as the pregnancy went on. So, first trimester, and this is the same for both of them, and I'll give you my story and my experience, and maybe it'll help you in some way by comparison. But so again, this isn't necessarily me telling you how to do things. This is just me sharing my story and letting you know what ended up working for me. So in my first trimester, both pregnancies, I was so nauseous that I absolutely did not even get out of my bed unless I had to go to the bathroom or shower or just barely get up to take a little walk around my apartment. It was really, really hot out in Phoenix at the time. It still is, actually. It's been over 100 degrees now my entire pregnancy. And it was in the beginning of the pandemic, sort of, when we found out we were pregnant. So it was especially scary. Like, we certainly weren't going into any, shopping malls or grocery stores or anything like that, and we didn't have to. So basically, I was bedridden in my first trimester. And there was absolutely nothing that sounded appetizing to me. I didn't have an appetite. And in my first pregnancy, this was particularly shocking and jarring for me because all I ever heard about my whole life was all these cravings that pregnant women get. Well, it turns out that you don't necessarily get those right away. Some people are so blessed and so lucky, and they go through their first trimester without any kind of morning sickness or all-day sickness that some of us get. And then some women actually have it a lot harder than what I had, and the nausea and the vomiting will continue far beyond the first trimester. I know one of my sisters had nausea the entire 9 months of one of her pregnancies. So there's going to be varying degrees of that. I can't tell you exactly what to expect, but for me, and from what I've heard from others, it sounds like my situation was pretty typical, where I did have like a pretty debilitating level of nausea for the first 12 weeks or so of the pregnancy. More like a period of 6 weeks, because for the first 6 weeks, I didn't even know I was pregnant yet. And then once I found out, it was like from week 6 to 12 that I really felt this extreme nausea. And in that time, so I was on one hand so nauseous that I could barely get out of bed, and I had no appetite. But on the other hand, I was being told, you have to take your prenatal vitamins, you have to eat X, Y, and Z, otherwise you're not nourishing your baby. And that was really hard for me, because I knew that if I were to take that vitamin, or that if I were to eat this certain food, then I would probably vomit. And I thought, okay, is it more important for me to keep what little I can in my stomach, or should I push myself to do all this other stuff? So somebody says no twisting, no deep bends. I'm not sure what they mean by, if you could further explain what you mean by deep bends, that would be helpful, because I've never heard that one before. So sometimes it's kind of a balance. So in the first trimester, what worked for me is that I ate a lot of fruit, because fruit was one of the only things that was appetizing to me, particularly sour fruits. And I found that if I found these certain foods that were sour and tasty and would whet my appetite a little bit, then I could choke down maybe a piece of like dry, like if I were to eat meat, I wanted it to be just like salty and kind of dry and like almost overcooked, which is exactly the opposite of how typically I like to eat my meat. But I just had to figure out a way to work with my appetite and to get in what I could. So first trimester, I'll just say this: don't worry if your nausea is getting in the way of your ability to eat as nutritionally as you feel like you should be eating, because it is a very common struggle. And I don't want to say that nutrition is not important in the first trimester. If you can get it in, it's very, very important. But if you absolutely can't do it, then, be patient on your body. And hopefully you'll start to feel a little bit more of an appetite once the second trimester rolls around. So, second trimester was, for me, in both pregnancies, the best part. And I think a lot of women have this experience as well. My appetite was back up, and I just can't even tell you how happy I was. It's like, it kind of changes really fast. It's almost like an overnight change. Something adjusts in the hormones, and suddenly I had an appetite again. And I was so happy when I finally felt like eating something. And interestingly enough, for me, the foods that I was craving were like foods that I ate in my childhood, foods that I had some kind of a nostalgic memory with. So I've been eating a lot of like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which again is not like nutritionally optimal according to a lot of people. But if it's something that can keep my energy up and keep my appetite going, then for me, it's okay. It's okay to have those treats as you go along in the pregnancy. And then so I've spent second trimester just eating quite a bit. And then the other thing that was a factor for me in this pregnancy is I was still breastfeeding my toddler through my whole second trimester. So I was really eating for three, for myself, for my toddler, and for the baby in the belly. And so adjust your appetite accordingly through each stage. And I guess the teaching that I really pulled out of that as well is that it reminded me that now for the rest of my life, I feel like I'll always have those memories of first trimester when I really wanted to eat, but just nothing sounded good and everything made me sick. Now I feel like for the rest of my life, I have a new appreciation and a new level of gratitude for any meal that I'm able to enjoy. So, so kind of try to get through the hard parts of the pregnancy by viewing that positive side, or the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess, that comes from going through that. And just know that even if you have those days where you're in bed all day and sick, your body is working extremely hard to literally create life. And so don't feel like you're lazy or should be doing this or should be doing that. You know, it's okay to have those days. Give yourself some grace. And then I actually just started third trimester. So I would say my appetite has stayed similar to what it was throughout second trimester. The difference being for me now is that now that my baby is bigger, supposedly about the size of an eggplant, according to the little updates I'm reading, it's pushing into all my organs. And so just as the baby pushes on your bladder and you have to go to the bathroom a lot, it's pushing on my stomach. And so I find that I get full pretty quickly and just kind of like to eat and snack throughout the day so that I can get enough calories and nutrients in. And then, so that's one of the ways that I have adjusted. Rather than eating, you know, a few big meals a day, I'm kind of just eating and snacking a lot throughout the day, and you know, enjoying that process as well of having a good healthy appetite again. And then let's talk about, I should also mention the craziest thing for me is that my daughter is now weaned. She's done breastfeeding. Over the past 2 weeks, it has been my initial realization of like, she really doesn't need breast milk anymore. And let me think here. Yeah, I think it's been at least 3 days since the last time she latched. And I'm, oh my God, it almost brings tears to my eyes thinking about it. We've been through so much with our breastfeeding journey, and I just, you know, it was just one of those things. I was going to let her wean on her own time, and I could feel my milk supply changing throughout the pregnancy, and we went through a really tough couple of weeks in the first trimester when my milk really suddenly dropped, and Aloe had a really hard time adjusting to that, and so I relied on a lot of family support to get us through that time. And yeah, so then since then, I started experiencing, and I actually have a video about this where I talked about it openly on my Instagram live, if you want to, or Instagram IGTV or whatever. It's still on there somewhere if you want to look it up. But we also went through this stage where it's called breastfeeding aversion and agitation. So there was this phase during the second trimester, and a lot of pregnant women who are breastfeeding toddlers experience this, when the breastfeeding started to agitate me. And that was the craziest thing, because one of the things that has been so Aloe and I have had a really, for the most part, an easier time breastfeeding, and she has been a little milk monster, and I've been more than happy to feed her for the first 2 years of her life. But then suddenly it started to really agitate me, and it just like felt uncomfortable, and I had never, I felt very guilty because I didn't want to like cut her off before her time, before she was ready to be weaned. In the end, I guess our bodies were just responding to each other, and she slowly but surely started to wean herself. And as a result of that, the entire time I breastfed her, my appetite was like way up here. But as a result of her weaning the last few weeks, and then the combination of that and the third trimester, my stomach being pushed by the baby, is kind of why my appetite is actually surprisingly not as robust as it was in like the initial postpartum stage and stuff like that. So anyway, I just can't believe that we're done breastfeeding. I never thought I would see the day. But my little toddler has been just a trooper, and she's excited to have a sibling, and I'm just so proud of her, and I'm proud that we were able to get, to go 2.5 years of being attached to each other through the breastfeeding relationship. So anyway, I'll just transfer. So my plan now, and we'll see whether or not it works out. I would like to breastfeed the next baby, and I'm glad I know now to be prepared for having a massive, massive appetite. So after I had, again, it's like you hear these expectations, you hear certain things all the time growing up. I always thought, okay, when you're pregnant and the bigger you get, the bigger your appetite gets, you're so hungry throughout your whole pregnancy. Maybe that is the case for some people. For me, the appetite really, really hit right after I had the baby because I was feeding her. And for me, that process and my body's process of producing that amount of milk was what really got my appetite going. And again, I actually enjoyed it and embraced it because it's like everything tasted better too. I just always wanted to be eating something. But it is good to try to, keep your sugar low when you can, get in a lot of healthy fats, know the difference, there's a lot of the word fat is so demonized, but there are so many kinds of fats in our foods that are good for us, like the kind of fats that you'll get in nuts or in meats or avocados or that kind of thing. So get in your healthy fats if you can. For me, another big one was getting enough meat and iron. And I'm sorry, but people feel really strongly one way or the other about meat, it seems. And I am a Plains girl, and I love red meat. I was raised with it. My ancestors were raised with it, and it's something that has always just been a big and important part of my diet and my eating. And of course, I'm aware of, there's all kinds of economical and environmental implications to the food choices that we make. And in my opinion, it seems like everybody out there tries to fully demonize meat, or they fully demonize certain aspects of the agriculture industry or whatever it may be. But in reality, it's such a nuanced conversation, and what's ethical or what's not, or what's available or not, it's all going to depend on where you live and so many different factors, what you have access to be able to shop for. And so anyway, I'll just say this, that I think red meat and getting a lot of iron through meat has been very important for my health, because one of my scares in my delivery is that of my last pregnancy is that my iron was a little bit low, and it caused some postpartum hemorrhaging and bleeding and stuff. So this pregnancy, I'm not afraid to continue to eat my red meat, and so far my iron levels are good, and I'm just trying to keep that up as the pregnancy goes on. So that's my personal experience. And then again, I know now to be prepared for having a lot of healthy snacks and a lot of just really hearty, filling foods to have on hand for the postpartum phase when hopefully I'll be, home breastfeeding a baby. And so those are my tips. Those are the majority of what I've learned in my pregnancy for movement and for healthy eating. I know it's kind of a frustrating conversation to have because I can't tell you the end-all be-all answers. There are going to be a lot of people out there who will say, no, absolutely this way or that way, or this is the only way. And honestly, those are the kind of people that you have to proceed with caution when you're taking that kind of advice that's so strict, because the truth is that health is complex. And our bodies, especially during pregnancy, are constantly changing and adjusting hormonally, physically, emotionally. All of these different areas are changing and adjusting and ebbing and flowing. And so your fitness and your food and what your body requires is going to shift as well. So the biggest piece of advice that I can give you is to be your own expert and to listen to your body as much and as closely as you possibly can. Be in tune with yourself. And if you can find, whatever kind of provider you are comfortable with or you have access to, whether it's, your standard OBGYN or whether it's, a grandmother midwife from your community, I do really think that there's value in all of these different systems of knowledge and systems of medicine. And so whatever works for you is great. And unfortunately, there's so much judgment and there's so much, strong opinions one way or the other on health and on maternal health. And you could hear it from either end sometimes. But you just, I think that's, again, one of the powerful things about motherhood is we do go through this transition of becoming fully empowered. And I guess you just really start to ingrain that mama bear mentality into your whole being. And because you become so, nothing can get in the way of your desire to do what's right for your baby, then I think a lot of us go through this process of learning not to listen too much to the judgments and just to do what you know is best for your situation. And so that's another, I guess, sort of a spiritual health tip that I can offer in embracing that empowerment change that comes with motherhood. So thank you, Veronica. She says, great advice. So we just have a couple of minutes left. And, if you have any questions about more about maternity fitness or, let me know. You can always email me or reach out to the Native Wellness Institute. They'll get you in touch. And let's just finish it off with another little quick stretching exercise. So we only have, 5 minutes left. So I'm going to take my little stool here that I'm going to use, and I'm also using my wall for balance. And I'm just going to rest my foot, my heel gently up on the stool, and my posture is nice and upright, and I'm going to take one breath in, and as I exhale, lean toward the side. Good. And inhale back up to center and lower. And now you can see I squared my hips toward my foot, and I'm just going to hinge at the hips. And don't worry if you can't lay your body, your torso flat against the leg. That requires a lot of flexibility. So even if you can just stand here and just let your leg rest upright, that is a great little stretch. And just feel the stretch, feel the movement. Do what feels right for you. Maybe you want to bend the standing leg a little bit or just really lean over. And then let's go ahead and try it with the other side. Good. So the leg comes up. You can use whatever you have around you, your couch, a chair, and just gently resting the heel onto that surface and just hinging at the torso. And then I'm going to adjust it facing and just exhale as you lower, inhale as you rise. And these breathing exercises and these deep breath stretches are something that is just going to feel so good and so healing for your body as you continue throughout pregnancy, throughout motherhood. Your body is in a state where it's working 24/7. So if you're not comfortable doing as exerting of exercises as you were doing prior to pregnancy, that is totally okay. There's plenty of time for that for the rest of your life. In pregnancy, you be gentle with yourself and you allow your body to grow and heal. And I forgot to mention one thing. My favorite kind of pregnancy exercise is walks outdoors. I know it sounds so simple. It sounds obvious, but the more you walk, particularly on a rough surface, so not a sidewalk, not a straight flat sidewalk, but if you can get out and do a little hike, a gentle hike, or any other kind of walk where you're kind of on the land and your hips are shifting and adjusting, that's going to be a great way to remain active in a gentle way and also to prepare yourself for all of the challenges and that come along with the labor and delivery process. But it looks like our time is up. So thank you all so much for joining me. I hope that this was informative for some of you. And again, I don't claim to be the end-all, be-all of pregnancy and maternity knowledge, but I am learning every day as I go through my process of motherhood. And I just strongly encourage everyone out there to focus and prioritize on your health to the best that you can as you carry your sacred baby in your womb and then into the world. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and we'll see you again.